You're in a war for the health of your brain and your body. Alzheimer's disease is expected to quadruple by 2050, and there's no cure for it on the horizon. I hate this statistic. 50% of people, 85. So how many of you want to live until you're 85 or beyond? So those of you that didn't raise your hand, suicidal? Think about this. We are living longer than ever. And if you're blessed enough to live until you're 85, you have a 50% risk of losing your mind. That should horrify you. In fact, when you're 20, that should horrify you, because how you prevent Alzheimer's disease is you prevent all the illnesses that are associated with it, and that starts early. One of the truly terrifying things that I learned doing the imaging work I'll tell you about is that Alzheimer's disease actually starts in your brain 30 to 50 years before you have any symptoms. So if you're going to be diagnosed with it at 70, odds are you had changes in your brain, noxious, negative changes in your brain in your 30s or 40s. So this is a woman I diagnosed with Alzheimer's at the age of 59. So these are 2 SPECT scans. That's a study we'll talk about today. SPECT is the study we do at Amen Clinics. It looks at blood flow and activity, looks at how your brain works. The image on the left is a healthy brain, full, even, symmetrical activity. Color doesn't mean anything, it's the shape. The image on the right, you can see all the holes, especially in the back half of the brain. So this 59-year-old woman likely had negative changes in her brain in her 20s. So those of you that are waiting to, think about this, those of you that are waiting to get sick until you get healthy, you might want to rethink that. So I saw that, so it doesn't disturb you, they do not die. But you gotta ask yourself, why the hell are they on a railroad bridge and there's no way out? So it reminds me that most of you probably haven't thought about the health of your brain because no one's looked at it. And because we don't look, we don't know. And I don't want you to be that person on the bridge. I want you to get off. And how you get off is you become a brain warrior. You become serious about your health. Because in addition to Alzheimer's, depression is the #1 worldwide most expensive disorder. It is one of the greatest killers of our time. It affects 50 million Americans at some point in their lives. It's increased 400% since the 80s. And the statistic that just horrifies me is 23% of women between the ages of 20 and 60 are taking antidepressant medication. That's nearly a quarter of them. And what most people don't know is that birth control pills deplete serotonin, the don't worry, be happy, feel good chemical in your brain. And depression doubles the risk of Alzheimer's disease in women, and it quadruples the risk in men. Obesity, everybody knows this now. It's a serious national crisis. 2/3 of us are overweight. 1/3 of us are obese. It increases inflammation. It's a risk factor for 30 medical illnesses, including cancer, diabetes, depression, and dementia. And there are dozens of new studies. I published 2 of them that say, pay attention to me. As your weight goes up, the actual physical size and function of your brain goes down. That should scare the fat off anyone. So, I read that first study from the University of Pittsburgh, and I was just horrified by it. In fact, I was so horrified I lost 30 pounds, because I'm never going to purposefully do something to damage my brain, and I was sort of like a little roly-poly. And then I'm on a plane for public television from Chicago to Des Moines, and a very overweight person is in the seat next to me. And I usually don't mind flying on little planes, because when you're little like me, every seat is first class, right? You always have leg room. And but this person was really obese, and half of her body was in my seat. And I got this impulse to reach over and say, you don't want to be a dinosaur. And, you know, because dinosaur is big body, little brain, you're going to become extinct. But I have good frontal lobe function, so I didn't say anything. Because, you know, the next thought in my head was, that is just so rude. Did any of you have mothers like mine? If you don't have something good to say, don't say anything at all. So that was my mom. And but when I got home, I told Tana, I said, you know, I think I'm going to coin this thing called the dinosaur syndrome. And she said, sweetheart, you have enough people that hate you. You don't need more people to hate you. That's rude. And I'm like, okay, so don't say that. That's why married men live longer than non-married men. But then, 2 weeks later, I got invited to GNC. So you know GNC. It's a supplement company in Pittsburgh, and they love my work, and they wanted me to do some things with them. And when I get to GNC, their marketing director, so the number 3 person in the company, is morbidly obese. And it irritated me. Now, pay attention to what I'm going to say. If you don't live the message of your company, if you don't live the message of your life, you are a bad messenger. I don't know how else to say that more clearly. But I have good frontal lobe function. We're going to do business together. And so I'm like, don't say anything, don't say anything, until we got to dinner. And my wife was there. And when I saw Tom order 2 soufflés for dessert, I'm like, Tom, you don't want to be a dinosaur. And then out of nowhere, boom, my wife kicks me. Why? Now, for the women that are here, why do you wear pointy shoes? What is the purpose of pointy shoes? It's to torture your husbands when they misbehave. And she gave me that look, you know, that only your wife can give you. But Tom got engaged. He said, what do you mean? He said, you know, I went to the doctor and my cholesterol was fine. I'm like, Tom, there's studies that suggest as your weight goes up, the size and function of your brain goes down. I said, how old are you? He said, I'm 43. I said, well, you're very successful. Are you done? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you don't want to be the number 2 person, or maybe sometime the number 1 person. Or I said, you're sort of like happy with where things are. And if you slip a little cognitively, it's no big deal, right? And he's like, no, that's a big deal. I said, you need to get this under control. And so what did I do? I raised his anxiety. So I'm a psychiatrist. You heard that. In fact, I heard some of you snicker when Jeff said, oh, he's a psychiatrist. Yeah, crazy. Well, I'm going to tell you in a little bit why I became a psychiatrist. But I used to think my job was to lower your anxiety. Right? So I know how to do hypnosis. I know how to do deep breathing exercises, meditation. And about 10 years into being a psychiatrist, I realized that's not my job with everybody. Some people, in fact, need more anxiety. I told you about that longevity study. Another major finding in the longevity study was the people who had low levels of anxiety, the people who were the don't worry, be happy people, that they took unnecessary risks, that they didn't manage their health effectively, died the earliest from accidents and preventable illnesses. So if you feel your anxiety going up, bless me. Send a blessing my way, because I'm doing something that's good for you. So let me finish the story about Tom. So, I got chewed out by my wife, and, how's anybody ever going to love you besides me? A month later, he wrote me that he'd lost 17 pounds. Two years later, he was down 80 pounds. He's the number 2 person where he works. Your brain and your finances are totally connected. Okay. I love this slide. Because when I figured this out, I was like a little kid, so excited. The answer is not to see obesity, depression, and dementia as separate disorders, but rather as different expressions of the same unhealthy lifestyle that have exactly the same cure. If you do the things I talk about, it attacks all 3 at once. I love that. All right. So the first thing, I'm going to keep this really easy for you. Basically, I want you to remember 3 things. You have to care. So I call it brain envy. Freud was wrong. Penis envy is not the cause of most of your problems. He was about 2.5 feet too low in the body. It's what's between your ears that matter. I wrote a book once called The Brain in Love. There was a chapter, no forethought equals no foreplay. So that's the brain warrior concept, is you're in a war for the health of your brain. Your brain is the most important organ in your body. It's involved in how you think, how you feel, how you act, how you get along with other people. Your brain is the organ of personality, character, intelligence, and every single decision you make. And when you look at your health, odds are it's a sum of all the decisions that you've made. So if you really want to get healthy, it starts here. It's your brain that pushes you away from the table, or it's your brain that gives you permission to do stupid things. Okay, so care, and then you want to know what are the things that hurt your brain and stop them and do the right things. So I'm going to fill that out for you. Care, stop, do. I mean, how simple is that?